My name is Maya Calloway. I am 33 years old. And the night my in-laws dragged my suitcase to the front door, handed me my sleeping infant daughter, and told me to get out of their house in the pouring rain, I made a decision standing on that wet pavement that I have never once regretted. I did not scream. I did not collapse. I did not beg the woman who had spent 3 years calling me inadequate to suddenly discover her conscience at 11 o'clock on a Thursday night. I pulled my daughter closer, walked to my car, and drove away from that house with exactly $47 in my bank account and something far more valuable that none of them could see yet. I had a plan. Before I tell you what happened 3 years later when I bought the street their house sat on, I want to ask you something personal. Where in the world are you watching this right now? What time is it where you are? Drop it in the comments below because I genuinely want to know how far this story travels. And if you are not subscribed yet, please do it right now because every single week I share stories about people who were counted out, stayed silent, and then built something so undeniable that the people who threw them away had nowhere left to hide. I met James Whitfield at 27 during a work conference in Atlanta. He was thoughtful and soft-spoken and he laughed at things other men in the room did not find funny. I fell in love with his gentleness before I understood that gentleness without backbone is not actually a virtue. It is just politeness waiting to be tested. His parents, Robert and Gloria Whitfield, were the kind of people who made you feel welcome in their home the way a hotel makes you feel welcome. Everything was surface warmth and underlying assessment. Gloria had a way of complimenting you that always contained a small wound inside the ribbon. She would say things like you have such a brave sense of style or it is so refreshing that you are not intimidated by more accomplished women. The kind of sentences that sound generous until you replay them alone at night. Robert was simpler. He simply believed money was character and that anyone without generational wealth was living on borrowed dignity. I came from a single-mother household in Cincinnati. My mother had worked night shifts at a distribution warehouse for 11 years to keep our apartment and never once made me feel like that was a limitation. She made it feel like proof. But to the Whitfields, my background was a liability they had accepted reluctantly when James proposed and were never going to let me forget. James and I married after a year of dating. The wedding was beautiful and small and my mother wore a dress she had saved for 3 months to buy. The Whitfields paid for the rehearsal dinner and mentioned it regularly enough that it began to feel less like generosity and more like installment debt. We moved into a rental near his parents because James wanted to stay close to family. I found work quickly at a small property management company where I handled tenant communications, lease negotiations and vendor contracts. I was good at it. I was organized and calm and I understood that most problems between landlords and tenants were really just communication failures wearing legal language. Within 8 months I had been promoted. Within 14 months I was managing a portfolio of 32 residential units. But at the Whitfield dinner table, I was still James's wife from Cincinnati who worked at a little property office. When I became pregnant, Gloria cried happy tears publicly and then asked me privately whether I had thought through how I would manage a career like mine with a baby coming. She said career like mine the way some people say situation. When our daughter Lily was born I took 6 weeks and went back. Not because I had to, but as I wanted to. Because I had started seeing something in the numbers at that property company that no one else seemed to be looking at closely enough. The neighborhood surrounding our rental market had 3 blocks of undervalued residential properties sitting in a pocket that sat between 2 rapidly developing commercial corridors. I had been quietly researching zoning changes, infrastructure investments, and lease expiry patterns for almost a year. I had begun talking to a small investment group through a contact I had made at a property conference. Nothing was certain. Everything was early. But I could see the shape of something real forming if I was patient enough to wait for it. Then came the night everything broke. James had been pulling away for months in that particular way that tells you a person is being slowly convinced of something by someone close to them. He became quieter at home and louder at his parents' house. He started referencing his mother's opinions in conversations where she had not been present. He said things like maybe my parents have a point and maybe we moved too fast in the same week. The argument that night started over something small and became something old very quickly. Gloria had arrived uninvited, which she did regularly, and had found Lily in a bouncer seat instead of being held and had made a comment that carried 11 months of accumulated judgment inside it. I said something honest. James took his mother's side in front of her, which was the first time he had done it so openly, and suddenly we were in a version of a fight I had not been prepared for that night. Robert told me this was their home, meaning the home they were paying partial rent assistance on, and that if I could not show respect I was free to leave. Gloria said nothing, but she did not stop him. James stood between us and chose silence, which is its own kind of answer. I packed what mattered. I took Lily. I took my laptop and my research files and my property conference notebook and $47, and I walked into the rain and I drove to my mother's apartment 2 states away, and I did not look back at that yellow porch light getting smaller in my mirror. Before I tell you exactly what I did next, I need you to do one thing right now. If you have ever been pushed out of a place where you deserve to stay, type the word standing in the comments below. Just that one word. Because what I am about to tell you is for every person who was forced to leave before they were ready and built something extraordinary because of it. And please subscribe if you have not already, because this community is full of people who understand exactly what it means to start over from the bottom of someone else's decision. My mother gave me her second bedroom and asked no questions for the first 3 days. On the 4th day she made coffee and sat across from me and said, "So what is the plan?" That sentence saved me. Not because I did not have one, but because hearing it from her reminded me that I had always been someone who had one. I contacted my investment group within the week. The timing was not ideal, but the opportunity was not going to wait for my personal life to stabilize. I laid out what I had been researching for 14 months. I showed them the zoning data, the infrastructure reports, the lease expiry windows, the comparable sales in the adjacent corridor. I told them I needed to move within 60 days or the window would close. They funded the first acquisition. Over the next 2 years I built a small but precise residential property portfolio in that neighborhood I had been watching. I was not reckless. I was methodical. I bought 3 properties in the first year, renovated carefully, secured strong long-term tenants, and reinvested every margin back into the next purchase. I brought in a partner with construction contacts. I hired a property lawyer who billed me honestly and never made me feel like a small client. By month 18 the neighborhood had shifted exactly the way I had projected. A new transit line was confirmed. 2 commercial anchors signed leases on the corridor. Property values in the surrounding blocks moved 31% in 11 months. By the end of year 3 I owned 11 residential properties on 4 streets in that neighborhood. One of those streets was the same one the Whitfield family home sat on. I did not buy their house. I want to be clear about that. I did not need to. I simply owned enough of the surrounding real estate that my name appeared on documents that crossed Robert Whitfield's desk through a local property newsletter he subscribed to. A mutual contact told me later that he had gone very quiet when he made the connection. Gloria called James. James called me for the first time in over 2 years. I let it go to voicemail. Lily was 3 by then. She was loud and curious, and she had started arranging her toy animals by size, which I found both hilarious and deeply familiar. My mother had moved into a proper apartment near me that I had helped her secure. I had hired 3 people. I was sleeping well. I had rebuilt entirely on my own terms, and the life I was living bore no resemblance to the one I had been rained out of on a Thursday night. Some people throw you out believing they have ended your story. What they have actually done is removed the ceiling. I think about that pavement sometimes. The rain. Lily's weight against my chest. The $47. And I think about how that night, which was the worst night I had lived through, turned out to be the most clarifying moment of my life. Not because I needed them to lose. Because I finally understood that I had never needed them at all. If this story meant something to you, please subscribe right now and leave a comment below telling me where you are watching from and whether you have ever had someone push you out of a place that turned out to be too small for you anyway. I read every single comment, and I will see you in the next story.